Hello and welcome back to another Warlords of Draenor video. This time we are going to be talking about raiding, and we actually have found out some new things about raiding and just got some more clarifications and things like that. This is all from the systems panel, which was just absolutely fascinating. They went into so much great information about so many different things, so expect to see loads and loads of different videos on all the things and my thoughts. So, raiding. Well, first of all, I'll just go through what we have in the first tier of this expansion. The Blackrock Foundry will be the second raid available at release, and it's centered at, it's the center of the Iron Horde, and it has 10 bosses in 3 wings in a non-linear layout. This just makes me so happy. We have had linear raids for a very long time, and it's nice to see non-linearity coming back into the design again. It's nice when you're on a guild run and maybe you just want to break up the monotony, you want to try things in a different order. Maybe if everyone in the group feels like doing a certain boss, they can go do that. Perhaps if there's a boss that has more loot, more potential loot for your group, then you can go and do that. That's a great thing about non-linear content. Now, of course, I'm all for there being some linear content, perhaps towards the end of a boss, or the end of a raid, even where, you know, it makes sense from a story perspective, but I think that at least initially, non-linear definitely does make sense. I do see, however, how it made sense for Siege of Orgrimmar to be non-linear, but I think perhaps they could have added, linear, but I think they could have perhaps added 1 or 2 more non-linear elements than what they had. Anyway, so there was some more clarification on the different difficulty levels and that kind of thing. So first, flexible difficulty is scrapped in name, and we have Raid Finder, which is 10 to 25 player, and this will scale down based on, you know, if people drop out or something like that, it'll scale the bosses down, so there's really never any downtime. As for normal, well, normal mode and flexible mode are now the same difficulty-wise, and this is a 10 to 25 player flexible sort of size. Heroic is also 10 to 25 player flexible, and it's the exact same difficulty as normal, as current normal. We then have a new mode called Mythic, which is 20 player, and it's the same as Heroic. Now, the thing about Mythic is it's 20 player, no flexibility, which means that if you want Heroic content, then you're going to need to step up from doing it in a 10-person context to a 21. Now, personally, I think this is, well, they're definitely hitting this with a very heavy fist, and I'm not particularly sure, well, just how much I like that. Now, the thing is, though, I suppose perhaps the good thing about this is, in a way, that because they're designing for one group size, they can make a lot more interesting mechanics and things like that. As an example, they did talk about how there was times when they actually had to scrap some raid mechanics because on Heroic 10 they just wouldn't work. So I suppose there will be better fights in Mythic difficulty than there is in current day Heroic, but it does suck if you are a 10-person guild and you can't scale up to 20. Honestly, I'm in that exact position. And that said, with the whole YouTube thing going on, and with just university and stuff, I probably won't have time for the Heroic raiding anyway, so the best I will have is probably the Warlords of Draenor Heroic, which is the equivalent of today's normal mode. Now, all raiding is cross-server, this is fantastic news, so you can always be raiding with your buddies, and that's very good. Also, each difficulty has its own lockout. There are no more dynamic lockouts or anything like that. Essentially, it's the exact same as things are with Flex, and I think this is really cool. So you have separate lockouts for every raid difficulty, and they're similar to Flex. You can be in a raid, and you can kill a boss as many times as you want in a week, but you can only loot the boss once. Now, if this is similar to Flex, then you will just zone in at the exact same location as, the exact same progress as the raid leader. I think this is pretty cool. It's, once again, it's very flexible. It will work out for a lot of people. So overall, I'm quite happy with it. Yes, Raid Finder also, it's going to be the only queued content. So, yeah, I think this is interesting that flexible is no longer a queue thing. Perhaps a tiny bit less pug-friendly, but all in all, I think it's going to work out very well. So essentially, my thoughts on this raid setup. I like it in general. I think that all this 10-25 player stuff is very good, and there are some concerns about breakpoints and stuff. I'll talk about those in a minute, but overall my opinions are positive. I am a little bit concerned about the Mythic thing, and I think it's a little bit sad that you can't do that in a 10-person context. However, as someone like who game design's going to be a thing in my life or like actual job, assuming YouTube doesn't turn into that, which would be nice, but anyway, it does, having a set amount of players for 20 for Mythic does make some sort of design sense. They can design around every single class being there. They can just do better things, I suppose. Now, normal and heroic have the exact same loot system as we have currently in the game for normal mode. So drops will essentially be, they'll drop off the boss, you pick him up, Master Looter deals him out. Very nice. Drops are also based on player numbers. For an example, this means that having more players has a higher chance of additional loot, and this will be tuned to make it so that there's no breakpoints in loot. So let's just say on 10-player mode, there is a 100% chance of getting 2 bits of loot. By the way, this is just random maths in my head, just to give you an idea. It's not final or anything like that. So say if you were on 12 players, or maybe 13 players, then the way it would change it is that there's an 80% chance to drop 2 bits of loot, and then a 20% chance to drop 3 bits of loot. So on average, the exact same amount of loot per player will drop, and it'll just be able to scale. I suppose it also makes things nice in that you can get additional loot drops and things like that. So overall, pretty good news. Also for abilities, they said that they can do some things with abilities and change the way they handle randomization so it doesn't cause breakpoints. For example, in a 14-player fight with something random like, let's say, Sun Tender Heart from Siege of Orgrimmar, you might have an 80% chance to get 2 Shadow Word Banes and a 20% chance of getting 3. However, if you were to have some more people, that might be a 50% chance of getting 2 and a 50% chance of getting 3. Now, as well as this also making sense on an average sort of perspective throughout the fight, I also think it makes sense from a gameplay perspective where it can throw the odd spanner into the works, where if there is a 50% chance, then things can be a little bit hard and challenging, but not in a way that is overpowered in terms of difficulty. So I definitely do think it makes sense. So this, I think, combined with the way they're handling stats, the way some of these new level 90 talents are looking like, and the whole new gear system, I just think this is going to make the endgame very compelling. Also, there's a lot of things to do beside the endgame, including more than just raids. So now that's raids talked about, let's talk about dungeons. Now, they didn't say much else about dungeons other than what we know, so I'll just go over what we know nice and quickly. Basically, there are 7 ones at launch. 1 of them is a revamped Upper Blackrock Spire. 4 of them are from level, they're like leveling dungeons, but also have a heroic mode, and the rest are heroic only. And a new thing they're doing with these dungeons is that they're making it so that the leveling dungeons will have a heroic mode, just like it did in Mists of Pandaria, but the max level dungeons, as well as having a heroic mode, they will also have a normal mode. This means that there's a more fleshed out tier system for dungeon loot, where you can go from your normal dungeon loot at max level to your heroic dungeon loot at max level. This would also, in my head, make it stand to reason that heroic dungeons might be a little bit harder. I'm not sure about that, however. Anyway, that's it for this video. Please let me know what you think in the comments. If you want to stay tuned with all the BlizzCon news, subscribe to the channel, because, you know what, there's going to be videos coming out all of today and probably all of tomorrow. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.